Damien is alive, Anton Chekhov is dead, William Shakespeare is dead, you can do what you like with their work. And also, yeah, his involvement, it was a bit off-putting for me to begin with, because I thought that's a lot of pressure, and I knew by that point the story wasn't, it's not a fairy tale, it was a hard sell in parts. So that was kind of off-putting for me. And then until that last meeting, I just thought, just get out your own head and listen and enjoy it. And yeah, by the end of that, I was like, oh, I have to do this. So the thing that I was most nervous about ultimately became the thing that made me want to do it, strangely.
I do also play Damien, but in a much younger version. My process always sort of revolves around movement, my body, and how I sort of internalise to externalise things, and quite often work from the outside in, actually. And I think for this project in particular, that albeit I'm playing Damien, for me, I think much less so than you, it's not been a case of, and I don't think it is for you anyway, of replicating, which is absolutely not what it is.
I don't think
Damien
of us do that.
No,
he wouldn't want that, did he?
And he sort of made noise that he doesn't want that as well,
Yeah.
which is lovely, and that's great.
Yeah.
Having the memoir was invaluable.
Yeah, totally.
Particularly for myself, from growing up, I start the play at the age of 4, end the play at the age of 18. There's various ages that come sort of throughout this journey. And so I suppose coming into the project, what I could begin to start to develop and work on and sort of explore is what it is physically to be these ages, what it is physically to grow up, how your body changes with puberty, with growth spurts, with getting to high school and trying to hide and mask yourself ultimately, which is what Damien had to do, right? He could not tell the world, didn't feel comfortable to tell the world who he was at these particular ages because of adversities and the rest of it. So again, sort of how that manifested within the body, therefore how that would then affect the voice, how that would then affect the gait, the walk, that stuff which I could do with the very earliest draft of the script, taking away any sort of experiences that may or may not be in the play but are in the book. I could work on that.
It is an exciting process, that sort of devising nature.
I think everybody has had their different challenges
Yeah.
with it. Is sort of figuring out what my character knows and what they don't know. Obviously, a 28-year-old version of Damien throughout this play knows ultimately how relationships end up that are in his mind, knows, what ultimately his view of Maggie is, and it's, the most kind of base example of that. I think where the difficulty comes from me, I think particularly within the process of the rewrites and how the plays come about, is if one detail is changed, then the timeline which I've sort of created for myself, and the consciousness of what I know and what I don't know, which then affects what I hear, which is also happening on stage, and what I cannot hear. For example, if a character comes in and, Gary, in a present day version of somebody else that's in his life, have a conversation which I can't hear because I don't know that they're still friends, or I don't know that potentially something has happened to them. There's big things that I cannot know which happen in the play, which Damien takes the 2 hours and 45 minutes of the play to sort of come to terms with. So once minor detail is changed in that timeline, or that consciousness for me, and I'm back to square one of knowing I need to retrace my steps, I need to reblock, I need to reassess what do I know, what do I not know.
I am on stage for we got a 30-second run around where I can dab my face and have a drink of water. I'm there the whole entire time. So my process with that particularly would slightly freak me out, because as actors, we need the text. I have a lot of text to learn and say, because it's a very separate thing to Damien's life and the book and the story, to our text, our script as actors. And that's been a real hard thing, because I think a lot of us were like, well, we can't sort of say anything. Whereas in actual fact, very quickly we had to go, that's not our jobs, that's the producer's jobs. We're actors hired to work on this text here. So we did have to sort of get quite brutal in certain parts with timelines and, meanings, and making sense of it for ourselves, because it's so densely packed. And I think therein lies the beauty of it. There is a lot going on. You will not be sitting for a second bored, because you're like, what? Who? Thatcher? Tutus? But to get it to that point has been, it's been a lot of brain power for us as an ensemble. When I finished reading the first draft that I got, I cried and I thought, that doesn't happen every day. You know, so go on your gut, go on instinct, and yes, it's not perfect at all. Jump in feet first, and I think that's what we all sort of have done. But even in the space, even in the rehearsals, there was never a, can we sit and discuss? It was very much we were breathing as one, the whole entire cast. I mean, it's such a beautiful ensemble piece that, I dread to think where we'd be if it wasn't with this specific group of people. We've really looked after each other. You know, anything bad that happens, you can always learn something, or there's always something to glean from it that's positive. And throughout this process, our camaraderie, our kindness, our care has been solid from the off. We have been a unit, and that doesn't often happen anywhere in life, especially in this industry. I'm assured it doesn't really happen in theatre a lot either.
Yeah, gosh,
We've just really, again, we were all after the same one goal, which was, this is such a beautiful story. We've got the privilege of sharing it, and we can't be the ones to fuck it up. So that kind of bound us fast. And we all had meltdowns on various days, and it was all okay, and everybody was supported. And, you know, and I suppose there could, in lesser hands, with you saying your things, I could have been like, oh, shut up and get on with it. Or, you know, they could have been divisive very quickly. Whereas anybody could have the floor at any time, and it was supported and it was held, and there was no question too stupid or ridiculous, or, you know, we absolutely were like, ask it, and we'll support you in it. So I'm grateful. It's been a tough process, but I'm grateful for the people that I've been in the trenches with.
There is a helpful nature that we have this book to go off. We have Damien's memoir. We also have Damien, you know, the real physical embodiment of the man in the room. And have him at the other end of a phone or an email, and he has been wonderful.
He was very open with that, which was great.
Which was, you know, fantastic. Couldn't ask for any more than that. And then the flip side of that is Damien. So these little quirks are something that maybe we might think, oh, let's try this. This might be interesting for me as a performer, or maybe this might lend itself to the story or to the scene. There is a limitation on what we can bring. I think further than Damien, though, something which is, I don't know if it's help or hindrance, but there is a definite weight of responsibility with this particular piece because of the memoir and how much the memoir itself means to people. You know, I'm from Glasgow, my family's from Glasgow, and my mum was telling me when I got the job that there's people that she worked with when the casting was announced, they were like, oh my God, I've got that book. I've read that book, and
it's so beloved.
It's incredible how many people that I speak to that have the book already know the story before seeing the play advertised.
It was sold out before any of us were announced.
Crazy.
You know, so that's the power of the book for sure.
And the book helped a lot of people, from my understanding. Even things like you go and look in the Amazon reviews for it, it's beautiful watching and sort of reading what people have said about this book and how it's helped them, how Damien's story of sort of overcoming these adversities and finding out who he is and sort of questioning all of that during quite a difficult time and quite a difficult place. So there's a definite responsibility there of representing something which is so kind of prominently helped people in many, many ways to deliver that justice.
There's a real beauty and there's a real privilege in getting to depict Damien in this story, and how the privilege of us both being able to portray him in our way. But equally, you don't have that through, but what if, you know, because you're always sort of referred back to his opinions and Damien, it's Damien's story, essentially. So you can try it, but it might not get through. When it was first brought in and I was like, I'm not touching a camera, there's something so pleasing. I kept saying that word a lot. That's so pleasing. It's so pleasing. Because I think there's such a vibrancy with marrying the two together. It's sort of like, it's so wrong, but it's so right. But you can speak to that, because I get on the cameras I'm not aware of, I'm focusing out, but you've got one in your face.
I've got one in my face, and quite an intimate, or a very intimate moment.
One of the most intimate points for you?
That's been challenging. That's been a conversation which has been going on in terms of whether or not that has to be the case, and it does. And I've been told, and I do now understand it from out front.
Yeah.
And I've been, it's
And
even
I
been
had
related
seen
to
it.
cast mates as well.
That thing you were saying, and then when you do watch it, when we'd shown runs, and the one sort of resounding note that come out of it from audience members who were invited in was at that moment just how heartbreaking and piercing. But obviously Sam doesn't get to see that because he's standing living.
Yeah.
And I also did. I get to see them, and I have shared that with them. I was like, it is worth it for that. But that's a difficult thing to tell a performer when you're sat, trying to deliver. It's a weird sharing of the two. These two should not be together, but in this they are.
Yeah, and I think also it's a difficult part of the job, but it is part of the job, is that ultimately it's for the audience. And that's something that as an actor you have to trust. So if your director tells you it's working out front, and like you said, like Gary, Douglas, another great member of our cast, has realised that they have gone out and watched because they're not needed in that scene, and they've said it absolutely works. It's really powerful out front. Obviously, as the actor, it's a very hard thing to do because there is no connection. I'm sort of connecting with a human being whilst not looking at them, telling them for the first time some real trauma that I've experienced in my life, and that feels very alienating.
And you're also doing it down the lens, which is it's not even acting for camera, because acting for camera is this, the camera's there, but I'm talking to you, whereas Sam is very much doing that. That's a whole other level of skill and weirdness.
It's bizarre, you, for example, you ask somebody, what did you have for dinner last night? And the first thing you go is, so you go up into thought, right? You go, what did I have for dinner last night? Or you search for a thought, right? Which I'm not able to do. So, and that was stressful early on in rehearsals when we're still bumbling about with lines and stuff because of rewrites. So I can't even think about my line. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm just going to need to steer down the barrel of this line's not for the best. So yes, that is tricky, but that is part of the job, I suppose, is that I have to park that. Because it's not about my experience, really. It'd be nice if I could have that, but if I don't, it is about the audience. It is about them. And if they get what they need from that, if they get what the story needs from that, then that's
and they really do. It's so beautiful. And again, because we're so used to watching TV, weirdly, when you're on stage doing it live, you want people to be watching you, but because we've got these TVs here, they just naturally gravitate towards it. So, I know it's been a tough old sell, but it does work. My 10 o'clock number is that last big final speech where everybody leaves and it's just me in a spotlight telling the harrowing tale that's sort of permeated throughout the piece. I start at 7:30 and I'm like, oh God, how am I going to get there? And initially I would be panicked. So I'd be in scenes in the first act thinking about that. And again, I'd never say lack of experience, my time not spent in theatre. I'm theatre trained, but that leave it alone because the train leaves the station at 7:30 and you do that scene and you do that scene and you do that scene. And then by the time you get there, you are ready to do that. And that's been such a gift of learning on this, because when I work in TV and film, it's like drop in, go. Day one on things are like, so you're getting strangled today, or your husband's left you, or your bloody mum's dead. You know what I mean? You have to come and bring it. So it's been really lovely enjoying the process of theatre again, because that's always there looming, but you arrive there through the process of doing it. But that big old speech at the end, because it's his catharsis as well, and it's almost like a sort of, this is what it's about for him. That releasing of being able to release that shame and upset and horror, sharing it. And I've said this a lot in our rehearsal room, illuminating dark spaces doesn't make them scary anymore. So that sort of illuminating and giving light and breath to these terrible traumatic experiences, and for that, when I've done that, that's me done. I know we've got a lovely little bit at the end, but when that's done, that's me. It's great. I'm sort of like, I can be here in the space,
I had this sort of very physical sequence where ultimately what's going on is I'm getting beaten by my mum's then boyfriend with a rocking horse. and sort of smacked about with it basically. And to sort of simulate this, there's a whole sort of physical piece where I'm sort of throwing myself around about the floor, rocking backwards and forwards. And one thing about it though is I find it really helpful. I found it very difficult for a while. Not necessarily the sort of physical demand of it, but the sort of mental thing of going there is hard with the physical stuff, and then immediately it finishing and sort of going to a blackout to then grabbing a pair of shoes from the side of the stage and coming back and then sitting and the lights going up and it's like, it's all fine, it's 12 hours later, and that's not all fine, but you know, it's 12 hours after the fact. And then we go into a song and dance. And it's, so there's this sort of escalation to.
Yeah, you've got a lot of key moments where it's like big gear shifts. We all do to a degree, but certainly yours are certainly a bit more varied, shall we say.
Yeah, I will say that it's helpful. You know, my work is very physical anyway, it's how I like to work, so I find that helpful to getting to the end of the play in terms of externalizing, to internalize this trauma. But it's a difficult shift because it is quite a significant shift of where I think it's the first time you see real violence in the play. Well, actually, the scene just before, I'm sort of pushed into a wardrobe and then a wardrobe's toppled off of a hill. But this is the first time you see, I think, real violence, which is a big shift.
For Damien and for this story specifically, yes, we depict horrible trauma and horrors, but the hope, you know, there's true hope in this. There's magic, and there is a happy ending. He survived. So I don't want people to go away constantly thinking of the trauma, but yes, that happened, but look where he is now.
I think as well as hope, confidence. Confidence in yourself to be open with who you are and know that that is enough, and be open in your wants and desires and feel the ability to share that with people. Share yourself with people and know that that is okay. And should be celebrated. It's not okay, it should be celebrated. It's amazing.
And again, stories like this, plays like this, thinking of we don't know who's coming to see it. You know, we're so mired in the, do I know my lines? What makes sense? Where's my costume? You forget, you know, what if we have got impressionable young people who are scared to come out or have those conversations, that something like this would just be pure magic to see there. And I've said that as well in some of the press stuff, like anybody who does feel marginalised or othered or doesn't fit in, and if they see themselves depicted here, then it's like, well, we're here, so your tribe is out there, come get us, we're here as your sort of support system, and we can be your family. Because sadly there are a lot of people out there who are still in Damien's situation in this country.